welcome Patrick Green. Thank you for agreeing to be interviewed about your recent standards check. And we did one recently, which seemed to be a good success. So I thought, I know you just did one also last week. So I thought if we can get you on and ask you some questions and just find out about how it all went. So I guess before we start, are you happy just to sort of give us a little bit of background about yourself, your journey as an ADI, you know, how you got here and how long you've been an ADI, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think that was March 19. I think and that was just before COVID. I contacted you, How to Drive.
Yeah.
I got told that was a reputable and very good company to deal with. So I contacted you. We arranged a meet, didn't we? And you talked to me about what we were going to, or what that involved. I agreed to go ahead with you, and we started our training and our journey together, I'd say. Obviously, with lockdown, we were in and out of it a bit. I think we both got COVID together, actually, I believe. I can't remember.
Yeah, we did. We were literally, I think you gave it to me, Patrick.
I think I might have. I blamed you.
Cheers for that.
No, and yeah, so I passed my theory and passed my part 2 first time. Then we done our training, our 40 hours, and you let me loose on the road. You sponsored me, which was very kind, and I started to teach. Started to have a couple of passes, and thought that was the right idea to take my standards check. And before that, we went into lockdown and we couldn't. Then I believe we went back on the road, and again, I'd done a bit of driving. I was happy with everything, and I went for my standards check.
So sorry, you did. So before the
standards check, sorry, my part 3.
You guessed it, yeah. So you
sorry,
got
yeah.
I get confused. So you got a part 3 in before the lockdowns.
Yeah. Which I failed, not by a lot though, and thought I'd passed it. Went through it all, thought I'd passed it. And the examiner told me what, where and why, all good with it, weren't a problem at all. Came back to you, had a few more little lessons. You sat in the back of my car a few times, come over to Yarmouth, didn't you? You went to even come to Lowestoft with us and had a little journey up there.
Is that with Poppy? Or,
with Poppy,
I think I sat in a few lessons with you. Yeah. Yeah,
and we no, he's very, very helpful, and what we thought got me to where I want to be, and I put in for another part 3. I keep saying stand check.
Yeah.
And passed that. Good score, happy, and that was about 13 months ago. That was in September time, not last year, the year before. So that was about 13 months ago, and kept teaching. Felt I've got a good pass rate. Looked at the stats. I always look at the stats.
How did you get your stats? Just people out there not sure how to do it. So
yeah, I phoned up the DVSA. They put me through the department. I think I heard you say Paddy. Was it Paddy or something? Was it?
Yeah, the Paddy email.
Yeah.
But you called them, did you?
Yeah, I called them first, and they said just email them for them, and they emailed them through to me.
Was it quick? Did you get them quite quick?
Yeah. Within they said that'd take 2 weeks, but I got them within 3 days.
Brilliant.
So that's quite good. So I've always looked at them, looking to see where if I can improve, I suppose. But you know what people, when they take their tests, like they just sometimes go into meltdown. Didn't get my standards check until 13 months later. I knew people had them 6 months after they passed the part 3. I was thinking about it. Yes, that's in the back of my mind. I think that's always in the back of your mind. But the thing was, and that was hand on heart, I wasn't phased about it. I just listen to what other people say, listen to what other people do, and can't understand why they get totally worried about it. I know that's your license, but I feel that we've been trained well enough, and I feel I have had the skills to do it.
So how did you how did you approach your standards check? Did you approach it in the way you might have done your part 3, or did you just think, do you know what, just another lesson? How did you sort of feel about it?
I went online and looked at a few videos, your videos, just to say what to do, but that just all made sense because that's what I just tend to do. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I treated it like that was just going to be another lesson. After my part 3, afterwards, which I took, the second one I'd done totally different to the first one, I just gave a lesson, and I just feel I just want to just see an honest lesson on, you know, teaching a pupil something which they don't know, give them some knowledge, give them some tools to work with, and go from there. And as soon as my standards check email come through, I booked it straight away. That was the 19th of January, and at Christmas, kept teaching, and then the week come up for that. And I suppose that week coming up to it, that was then in the head that I got my stand check again. And I mean, ask your other pupils, I just say to them, I'm not that phased about it. I'm just going to just go and give a lesson, you know, what's different. And with the knowledge, what we've got, we went ahead, and probably a couple of nights before, not the night before, but the couple of nights before, I did have a sleepless night. I think that was on my mind, but subconsciously. And that morning of the test, I actually felt okay. I didn't feel like I felt on my part 3. I didn't feel the same inside. I felt quite normal. And I think with conversations, even with you, I just felt that was more relaxed. I felt that.
What time did you have your standards check?
10 o'clock in the morning.
So not too bad. Not the 8:30 one.
Not the early one. I had a choice of, I think it was 3 on the day, and I did choose the 10 o'clock one, I thought.
So okay. So would you mind sharing your experience, just in your own words, like how the test went and what you did? If you're happy to share your score, share your score. If you're not, don't. Yeah. But I know when you did speak to me afterwards, you had some really interesting things to say about it, which I think just everyone could learn from.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't want to run on too much. Yeah. I had a pupil, which I asked her. I actually had a reserve one as well. That's always good to have one of those just in case. But I had a pupil, a lad, Kobe. His background, he'd had 15 hours with another instructor. He came to me, recommended to me, and I took him on. He'd had 2 previous lessons with me. Bear in mind, he had 15 hours, but the first lesson we went straight to steering because the guy couldn't steer, which obviously very important. And moving off and stopping. And never heard of the MSPSL, never heard of POM, never heard of a lot of
really.
Yeah, wow. what you taught us from the start.
And what he had 15 hours.
15 hours.
Previously.
Yeah.
What, he could drive with an ADI or with mum and dad, or?
No, with an ADI.
Okay.
I won't mention any names, but I mean, he could drive me to Stalham and back from where I live near Relsby, absolutely spot on in a straight line, good road positioning, but didn't know anything else. Didn't know, why he was doing stuff, where he was turning, etc. So the second lesson I gave him, we started to look at junctions, and I thought that'd be really good because he was a competent driver, but he just didn't know what he was doing, what mirror to look in, why he was looking in it. So we had a lesson, and after that lesson, I said, okay, Kirby, we'll continue the lesson next week on my standards check. And what he'd done was he was coming to a junction, kept the car moving, having a quick look to the right, and then more or less one that's clear to the right and wanted to come out into the road. So we weren't really doing a good look at the junctions, left, right, and then moving off. So I thought that'd be a really, really good little subject to teach. And that was
focusing on observation junctions.
Yeah.
Got it.
That was what would be the subject. So I took him to Lowestoft on the morning of the test. I drove to Lowestoft because he hadn't done roundabouts, and there was quite a few roundabouts on the way to Lowestoft. I didn't want to get messed up. I drove him to Lowestoft, got there about 40 minutes early. had a chat in the car on what we want to do on the junctions. So I filled him in what the brief we were going to do, agreed a lot of stuff, and then we went off and had a look at a few little junctions. And whether it'd been, because I always ask them to watch YouTube, I always ask them to watch your How to Drive YouTubes. When after we have a lesson, I say, next week we're looking at, you know, junctions, go and look at them, look at that, look at what how I do there, get some familiar stuff with yourself. When I talk about it, you'll understand it. And we've done a couple of junctions, and his mirrors were actually getting really good, and his observations were getting good. And didn't have a panic on, but I'm thinking, okay, well, we can take this a stage further, because I'll get him to go to a busy junction. That's what I will do, because we were around the little quiet roads. Drove to the test centre, and as we were coming into the test centre in Lowestoft, we were coming from Yarmouth to Alton Broad, turned right into the test centre, and there's lorries parked down that road, and there was a lorry approaching the junction up from the minor road, and he turned in and he overshot the junction. I've pulled the steering wheel around. We didn't go up the curb, and right turns into a busy junction. So although that we still had the observations in our head, I said this would be a really good subject to do, and he agreed on that. So we got to the test centre, parked up, and we were about probably 15 minutes early, 10 minutes early. So we had a chat about how we're going to do this, what you need to do, talked about reference points, talked about the centre line underneath the mirror, that's where you need to go, look ahead, plan ahead, are you going to stop, what gear do you want, do not go past that white line, even if you're rolling, stop, you know, get at first gear, get yourself prepared, pom, off we go. And he was happy with that. Got into the test centre, or the examiner come out, and ever so nice, ever so polite, felt totally different from part 3.
And really. Same examiner?
Sorry?
Same examiner?
Yeah. And yeah, felt really calm. He asked me about my pupil. I told him that. He asked if I had any records. I said, oh yeah, I've got it on the phone, because we use the Total Drive app. And Michael go, oh yeah, you're all in this. I said, yeah, the modern stuff, and which he did have a smirk at. He was quite funny actually, and I showed him. He wanted to see it, and we went through it. I had all the little notes in there. He introduced himself to my pupil, jumped in the back of the car, told me the time we've got. Didn't tell me about keeping it brief, didn't tell me about keeping it short or anything. So I literally sat in the car. That's probably when I got a little bit, you felt with your mouth, you felt like your brain was wanting to talk and your tongue wouldn't move. Took a deep breath and said, right, Kobe, are you still happy to do the right turns? Is that what you want to do? Yeah. I said, and we can work on your observations as well at that point. Yeah. Agreed. Because bear in mind, we'd already had a bit of a lesson. So I said, yeah, still happy with the conditions. So I didn't go about wet conditions. I didn't say 4-second rule. I said, you're still happy with the conditions? Yes. And then said, okay, what responsibility you got to take today? You know, and he said, oh, yeah, well, if you can just come in and prompt me. I just done it naturally. I didn't like start thinking of MSPSL. I said, so you, and he said, well, just prompt me if I get in a muddle, because that's what he normally say. I said, okay. Well, I said, so you just let me clarify that. You're happy with your mirrors? You're happy with your signal? Your position? Well, just help me with my position a little bit. I said, okay, and where are you going to stop? And it said it again then, the line underneath the mirror. I said, okay, good. Speed and gear choice, yeah. And I said, and your looks, that's the important one. I said, we've got to work on them looks as well, yeah. Yeah, happy with that. And didn't mention about the weight of the car, anyone in there or anything like that. And I said, okay. I said, follow the road ahead at all times, say left or right, or road mark and say. And I said, and when you feel safe to go, I said, we can get on the move. Sorry, did mention one thing when we said, got this. And Michael did like nod his head in the back. I always say you look at your mirror and you can see him.
Exactly, as she was saying, looking for the nods.
Oh,
he lets you know when he's happy.
I said, we talked about the conditions. I said, but now as we're going to do right turns into road, we might be going in there, you know, a little bit quicker than normal, not stopping anything like that. I said, you're going from major roads into minor roads. And as I see conditions today, I said, so what could be on the road? And he said, oh yeah, ice. I said, because a lot of minor roads aren't treated. He said, yeah. And I said, and you're happy with the rule about pedestrians crossing? He said, yeah, 100%. So I didn't have to explain all them. I'm just, he knew them.
Yeah.
And, because we talked about
like a real lesson.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
Very natural. If I'd missed anything, I missed it, but I didn't feel I did. And off we went. Come out of the test centre, turned left, and then we got to do the first right turn into a junction from a major road into a minor road with traffic. Car was coming over a little bit of a brow hill. He had time to turn, started to get a bit jittery, and he snaked it into the road. So what I got to see as a genuine, absolutely 100% genuine lesson. Said what we'd done wrong there, didn't have to stop it, continued. I said, what are we looking for? He said, oh yeah, that line in the middle of the door. And I said, no, where's the line? Centre line got to be. He said, oh, we're under my mirror. Said that, I mean, mentioned it 3 times. Off we done, went round a quiet area doing a few right turns. Had in my head, we can up the lesson and go somewhere busy if need to be. I think that's very, very important. You know your area. It's got to be important, because if you need to adapt it, you've got to adapt it. But I knew where we were going to go, and probably 10 minutes into it, which the time goes so quick, but 10, 15 minutes into it, how do you feel you're doing? And he said, yeah, I'm getting it. I said, well, if you realise I'm not really telling you where to turn now, I'm just being quiet. You seem like you've got it. Do you feel happy with it? Yeah. I said, okay. I said, so should we move on from here? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, did you want to do something else, or should we up the game and let me challenge you a little bit and look at some busier roads, turning across a lot more traffic? And he went, yeah, that would be good. So I said, okay, we'll head off to a little bit more of an area. I said, but the area, when we drive there, we are going to take one roundabout in between this. I said, and how we got to deal with that, as we haven't done them before? He said, oh, just talk me through it. So I said, great. So we agreed that. En route to that, I talked him through the roundabout, and he did actually do it really, really nicely. Listen to what I said. And that was a quiet one as well, which is quite nice. And then we turned, ended up finishing driving down the A47 through Lowestoft, through sort of like Corton Way. And there was a block to do some right turns, so going from a major into a minor, and then coming out of another road, minor into a major, and then into another major. I'd done that trip 3 times maximum. That's the maximum I could get into it in the time. He snaked it into the first one again. We talked about how that one went, and he said that weren't, I went too clever. And I said, well, what do you think you've done wrong? He said, well, I just overshot it a bit. I said, you know, the timing was right. You judged it right. And how did you judge that? Walk across, you know, we mentioned LADA, things like mentioning LADA, mentioning MSPSL,
drive across,
yeah, things like that. And when you do mention that, you know, honestly, I know I actually said it, but you can just see Michael just sitting there, you know, he's happy with that. And I thought the lesson was going really well. We turned down a 20-mile-an-hour road from 30 into a 20. I weren't one of these people to keep saying, what's the speed of this road? I'm sure the examiner hear that all the while. They just,
yeah, exactly. You'd only talk about that if it was part of the learning aim. If they've got a problem with the speed limits, then it would be relevant to say that. But if it's not a problem, if it's not broke, you don't kind of need to fix it, do you? You just.
I just, when we were driving down there, and I said, what? I didn't say what was. I said to him, why do you think the speed bumps are here? And he said, because that's a 20-mile-an-hour road. And I said, that's quite good. I said, but why do you think that is this sort of road? He said, was it near a school? I said, yeah, well, you haven't seen the school sign yet. I said, but that is near a school. I said, so, you know, I always think that, you know, just plan ahead. And I kept always mentioning plan ahead, plan ahead. I mean, that's what Michael liked. I said, you know, anything there, plan ahead. We had a difficult meeting situation where a car pulled up, didn't indicate, stopped in front of us, and then done a reverse bay park. That was another learner car. and he waited for it and liked all that. Asked him if he was happy to deal with it, plan ahead. Got to the end of the road, went to turn right to go back to the test centre, and as he was going to pull out, I dual braked him.
Right.
The car was going to turn. The car was indicating to turn in front of us, and which that done so absolutely legally, properly, and he didn't quite let it clear. He sort of like, he was then going to pull out. So I just stopped him, and he went, ooh, and I went, I'm not going to talk about that now. I said, we've got to get back to the test centre, because I literally looked and we had like 7 minutes to get back. Michael didn't mention times or anything on it. I think we'd done the time right. I said, don't worry about that. I said, no, I could pull you across and sit and talk to you about it. I said, but I feel we could do this at the test centre. You drove really well today. I said, are you happy to do that, or do you want me to talk to you about it now? I asked him what he wanted to do. He said, no, we'll go back to the test centre. So I didn't have to talk about it there, although I dual braked him. We got back to the test centre, pulled in there. He's never done a drive-in bay park, so I said, we're going to pull into a space on the right. I said, I will help you with this, if that's what you want, because I've got to keep it safe. Mentioned in words, and he stopped the car, and I said, where do you think you could pull into that space? When do you think you can turn into it? And never done it before. He said, that line underneath the door mirror.
Yeah.
Yep. So we pulled into the space, and made him look over his shoulder, which he wouldn't have done. And pulled into the space, stopped the car, and then just debriefed for probably 2 minutes, talked about the incident, why he thought he could pull out, talked about we should let the hazard clear, what could have been the consequences of it, car turning into the road, could that have stopped as that's turning in, could there have been one of these people walking across the road who had priority. Do you know what I mean? We talked about a little bit of that, then talked about the lesson, how it went. He said that was really, really helpful. Yes, he thinks he's got it with the line. Yes, he felt a lot more comfortable with it. The turns got better as he'd done it all the way through. Probably 2 minutes afterwards, spoke for, and said, okay, thanks very much for helping me on the standards check. And I said, right, is there anything to say? He said, no. He said, I'm going to just go and mark your paper. He said, if you want to come in 10 minutes time, he said, or I'll come and look for you. And let Michael out of the car, thanked him, and sat in the car. Big sigh of relief. That was a relief then. I felt that was a relief. And the pupil said to me, how do you think it went? And I said, generally, I think we've done well. I think I said, if I failed, I said that I will give this job up because I think that I'm not worthy of it. I said, but I felt, I said, generally, did you learn? He said, oh God, Patrick, he said, that was a great lesson. He said, I mean, I say I learned more in this week with you and having 15 hours. He said, that was fantastic. I feel a lot more confident. And he was driving faster and more confident, and he got it right. And then I walked down to the test centre, sat in there for a couple of minutes, and then examiner come out, took me through the back, which I've never been through the back there, didn't ever see the back of the office there. Quite ironic that the lad who we had a meeting situation with was another learner car. He was in there. He said, oh, was that you? We stopped. I said, yeah. I said, just tell me something. Did your pupil put his indicator on at the last minute? I said, or did I miss that? He said, no. He said, I asked him to put it on because he was in front of us. I said, oh, right, okay, good. But yeah, Michael come out, went through the back, and me was slightly different from Ashley. He said, how do you think you got on? That was his first words to me. And I said, to be honest with you, Michael, I said, and I was just talking to him dead straight. I mean, he's a human being. I mean, some people are worried of him. And I just said, well, to be honest, if I haven't passed, I'll be disappointed. I said, because that's me. That's a genuine lesson. That's how I teach. I said, so if that's not worthy of getting a pass, I said, I'll give this up. Said, give this up. Don't be stupid. And that's when he went into like, oh my God, and he did say, he said, you're an absolutely credit for an ADI. He said, that's really good. And we talked a bit about how to drive and the teaching. I said, well, I felt I've been taught right. And he said, that was a really, really good lesson. And I said, oh, I really appreciate that. I said, I take it I passed then. He said, yeah, you got a really good score. And he said, however, and I will say online, he said, I'm absolutely gutted I cannot give you an A. And I went, he said, you are that close. He said, you are that close to an A. And I went, well, just give me an A then, Michael. And he went, I can't. He said, if you would have said, and this is where I was a little
right.
So he said, if you would have pointed out and said about the centre line being under your door mirror, he said that would have triggered 4 of them questions. He said, and you'd have been 48 marks. And
I thought you had.
And I said, well, I said to Michael, I said, I've got my camera on there, and I said, I know, I said it. I said, because when I said to Kobe about it, he said, the line under the middle of my door. And I went, no, underneath my mirror. Now, I know I was talking quiet in the car and I'm facing away from him. I said, but you might not have picked that up. But I generally did say, and I got a pass and I was just pleased to pass at the end of the day. And I'm not going to argue. But then Michael said, well, what I mean was, if you would have stopped the car and pointed it out and said, look, that's where we need to stop and that's where the centre line should be.
Well, like on a quiet road, like
but
turning in from a major to a minor. Quiet road and just sort of, okay.
Yeah. So that's probably just thinking that little bit more outside the box. That I was probably assuming that because I've said to Kobe, that's where the line is underneath the door mirror. You know, perhaps if I'd have said to me, just stop and show me where that line is. Yeah, just turn into that road. Look how nice and square and nice we got into that road. That would have been literally. I'm not messing around with top marks virtually. He said, that was just such a shame. And like I said to him, and we sat and chat, to be honest with you, about 15 minutes afterwards, found him very, very interesting and understanding more what they require. And I think that takes sometimes that we don't think out of the rightfully outside the box. And what I liked what he said, and I use this now, and a good scenario to think, like, even when we're children and you're trying to teach your own children to read, write, play with their toolbox, because I like the word toolbox, Michael said, give them a tool to use and let them work with it. You know, give them a tool, give them that line, show them the line, show them what they need to do, then let them work with that tool. He said, so now, like when I think about it, kids open their toy box and they chuck their toys out and play with the dinosaurs and all the different bits and pieces. No, they want to play with the blocks, square pegs, round holes, and ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, because they will learn more with that if you give them that and show them where they need to go. And and I don't mean treat pupils like children. I'm saying break it down a lot more.
Yeah, give them something. Like something come up recently where the pupil was emerging from a junction, a T junction, and the pupil kept saying that I'm struggling. I hate these junctions. I hate it when they're busy. And the instructor didn't pick up on it and said, well, I'll help you. I'll help you do that. And of course, the feedback was, what could you have given that pupil to help them judge that?
Yeah.
And if you give them that and let them have a go with it, then you'd be on the right track. That would have been a pass. Yeah. And so yeah, definitely you've got to give them a way of doing it, isn't it? Like, so they can, so you're kind of trying to make yourself redundant, aren't you? Once they've got the way, they can practice that and then they don't need you anymore. And therefore that's the good value for money, because they're learning, aren't they? You've given them something to play with and get practice with, and now they're sort of becoming more independent.
Yeah, and I think some of the pupils, and all the pupils are different. I mean, Kobe's like myself, I'm dyslexic. Kobe's dyslexic. When I asked about how he learned more, he learns more by sometimes us showing him what to do, opposed to even taking it in his brain, telling him what to do. Certainly not reading it. He loves looking at pictures. And a lot of pupils, you can say what you need to do, and I mean, you'll see it, yeah, but they're really meaning no. They don't understand it, and we take on board. We do so a lot of the time now. Even when I'm doing my lessons, if they're not quite getting it, I'll say, look, tell you what we'll do. Let's just swap seats. Let me just show you and let you feel this. How'd that feel? How'd that look? Yeah, and then they'll go and do it straight away. I've got it. I understand what you're doing. you know, the classic one, put it in first gear and not letting the clutch up, you know, feed some gas in and just let that clutch up, get it all smoothly, you know, coming into road. And if they can't do it every time, I'll just say, look, this is what you need to do. And they do understand. But generally, I think going back to the standard check, if that was my advice for anybody, would go into it generally, no will in as such as deliver a lesson, what you normally do. And you know on your lesson, whether they're a lesson just before their test, they will make mistakes, and you can pick up on it and work on just something they do. You know, they're not looking for a quick fix or anything like that. They're looking at your teaching skills, see if you're using the right terminology and words and how you come across. And yeah, I was gutted. I got a B. I was 2 marks off an A. I think I was 2 marks or 1 mark off an A. I can't remember, but that was I got a B.
Yeah, you got 41. Was it 41?
Yeah, it was
2 marks.
Yeah, 2 marks off. One thing I could have said, he said that would have been a 48. Yes, I passed. I mean, if that's like an A- or a B+, that's how I looked at it.
Yeah.
The feedback I got from him was very positive. I didn't say, he said, well, hopefully we wouldn't need to see you for another, his words were 2 or 3 years. He said, just keep what you're doing, work on your observation. On my scores, there was the observations and a couple of little
on your test results.
Yeah, on my test results. Yeah, but the triggers was observations was a little bit high, but
well, observation at junctions, that's the reigning #1 fault since 2006. Observation at junctions is #1. Do you know like what the top 3 are of the top 10 reasons to fail year after year after year?
No, I've got saying no, I've got a little guess.
#1, observations, junctions. #2, mirrors changing direction. #3, steering.
Right.
Forever. Well, not forever, but if you look back, it's just amazing. So it would be no surprise that, you know, on average that most instructors would have that. And when I did speak to the examiner, a lot of it is from emerging from T junctions. You know, when they're going left and they look right and don't take the observation to the way they go in.
Yeah.
So they're looking for cars coming from the right, but start to go over the lines when they haven't looked. So that's like one of the examples. Or they just, like, you know, where you jawed him, where he went to go creep out and the car's turning in, that would be a serious fault observation. So so you can see, he's the #1. So by the way, did you, when you got back to the test center, did you talk about, when you jawed him, did you have that little conversation about?
Yeah, that's the first thing we talked about. The very first, even before what we done there. I did say it earlier on. Yeah, that's the first. Yeah, no, it's okay. That's the first thing we talked about. Why
I'll have to watch the replay.
Why I done it. Why he thought he was good. Why he thought he could go. What would have been the risks of him going, and how would he do it differently now? And there were the 4 things I just had it in my head. I was going back thinking what I was going to even say to him about it, and and he said about it, and I actually said before Michael got out of the car, I said, I know, Michael, you hear this all the while and you don't want to hear it. I said, but we will practice it on the way home, won't we, to Kobe? He said yes. I said, and that's what we can have a drive and look at. And you know, I was just natural, you know. Honestly, when I say natural, I honestly just felt quite, once the lesson started, I even forgot Michael was in the back. You just got on with it, and just that went so quick. That was just so quick. It went funny.
And another tip that, again, the examiner gave me, where, because we quite often say, what's the risk of doing that? And just quite recently, he was saying, oh, you know, better word would be to say, what's the danger? What's the danger of doing that? What's the danger of cutting that corner and not looking? Because we do say risk a lot, because we think about risk management. And there you go. So there's something that, it's a small thing. Don't think it would cost anything.
That helps.
It was just I guess talking more like, you would normally to a pupil. That's more a natural fit. What's the danger of doing that then?
Yeah.
That's how you'd normally talk, isn't it?
Probably would do, yeah.
Good. So anyway, have you anything you'd like to add? Because I appreciate your time and sharing that with me and everyone else that watch it. So thank you very much. Anything else from you, Patrick, before we sign off?
No, I just think that if any advice for I'll help anyone. Anyone can phone me. It's not an issue. That isn't. They've all got a number. But just if I have another standard hit come up, I just be myself. Your training, because I'm quite new with you. If anyone's not been with you for a few years, or anyone who haven't been, what I'd say, been taught the new way, need to contact you to talk to. Do you know what I mean? To every time I talk to you, I learn something else. Danger tonight, risk, danger. You'll pick something up off you which will help. And if that helps us, that'll help everybody. That'll help the pupils, etc. So I would definitely be yourself. Get as much training in as you can, and go into it full of confidence, because you should be. Use all the stuff, MSPSLs and all the bits and pieces, because that's what you use every day, and that's natural,
It's funny, really, because just think back, Patrick, to when we used to do these Zooms. After we'd record a lesson, when we give you the GoPros, record it, and I did.
I know
you used to get beaten up, didn't you? Badly beaten. Sorry. And oh dear. But
I can remember. I can honestly remember when we.
How long ago was that? I mean, now look at you.
No, but that is interesting. I'm proud of myself, because I am. But I honestly can remember when I had a lesson with you, when you made your head go down into the footwell, and you're driving along, and then you're suddenly coming to an end of a junction, and I'm thinking like, brake, and you're like looking at yourself, thinking, whatever's that for? But that happens all the while. You can't. You're driving along all the while, just looking at people's feet and looking at. That's just amazing how someone teach now. And you do get a good response, and I'm very happy with what I do, and but yeah, pleased with you, and thanks ever so much for all your help all the while.
Thank you, Patrick, and I'll just echo what the examiner said. You're a credit to the industry, so thank you.
All right, brilliant.
So on that note, we'll sign off.
All right.
Okay, thanks.